Hello everyone, it is the 27th day of Shorty September. There are literally 4 days left, including today. We're gearing up toward the end, can't drop the ball now, it's very important. Okay, today's read is something I feel will be uplifting, okay, because yesterday's book, while good, put me in a dark place. So, today's read is The Reason I Jump by Naoki Higashida, which is about a 13-year-old child, or is written by basically a 13-year-old child in Japan with autism, and he's like trying to tell people what it's like in his mind, you know, in the brain of someone with autism, and why he does things that we might see as unusual, whatever. And I was reading the intro bit it's actually written by David Mitchell, so the Bone Clocks guy. Or is it the Bone Clocks guy or the Slade House guy? Same guy. Both books. So, I guess he speaks Japanese, or his wife speaks Japanese or something. He literally translated this book, first of all, just unofficially for himself because his child has autism. And he was sort of like, you know, struggling a lot with his kid. Didn't know why his kid was behaving the way he was. Wasn't getting a lot of, like, useful support. So then he heard about this book and he sort of read it through, and it answered loads of things for him. Just this 13-year-old with autism basically talking to him and saying, this is why your child does this, you know, instead of doing that, which triggers this, do this instead, which he'll respond better to. And it like apparently changed his life, you know. So then he was like telling other people, and they were like, why is there no translation of this into English? You know, all these parents who are dying to read this and it's only in Japanese. So he's translated it. He was just like, well, let me get started on that then. Jesus. Got a text this morning saying Anwen's COVID test was negative. So she's gone to school. We didn't get the info about it being negative back in time for her to go to the party, but at least we got it back in time for school. So actually it's quite a fun day at school today, so that's quite good. I think it's European Languages Day? European, like modern languages, European Languages Day, anything, or whatever. So their class, like each of the little years, like the little classes, has like a specific country that they're gonna like celebrate, and they're gonna like cook food from that country, and like they're like wearing the colors of that country and stuff. And Anwen's class is the Netherlands, so she's gone in like red, white, and blue, like the flag. But then when I was there, I saw a bunch of kids like sort of divided about who decided what colors to wear, because some of them did red, white, and blue like a flag, and some of them did orange, you know, like the royal family. So there wasn't a lot of cohesion there. We probably should have talked about this before. But so that'll be fun. That'll be fun for her. I'm happy for her. So this does, however, mean that because both of us don't have COVID, I now have to actually go into the office on Wednesday. There are pros and cons to everything in it. Okay, so I'm a pretty good way into the book now, almost halfway, maybe close to, something like that. Anyway, it's a very quick read like I thought it would be, and it's super interesting and I'm really enjoying it. So the answers that the boy is giving are, you know, really short and like a bit vague in places, but you can tell he's obviously doing his best to communicate like the truth of the situation and like his reality to someone who has a completely different mindset, you know. And it is working pretty well. Like all of the questions or whatever, like question 9, question 10, blah blah blah, are things like you know, why do you take ages to answer questions? You know, why do you speak in a peculiar way? Do you find childish language easier to understand? Like, they're quite blunt questions, but, you know, I guess the way to get to the bottom of something is to address it head on. Why do you do things you shouldn't even, when you've been told a million times not to? Why do you echo questions back to the asker? Why do you ask the same questions over and over? And it's really interesting. Like, I have a couple family members and friends who are on the spectrum, and I think this is going to completely change the way I communicate with them. Like, one of them was, you know, why do you ignore people? And he's like, we're not ignoring you. We're just, you know, overwhelmed with things around us, looking around, taking information all the time, trying to cope. We don't even realize you're talking to us unless you come up to us and say our name. Like, you know, I can understand that. You know, I'm fully on board with that. Next time, I'm just gonna fully, like, address you to your face and say your name so you know that I'm talking to you, and that's fair, you know? Other things are like, why are you constantly being told to do the same things over and over again? And he's like, it's overwhelming, like, everything's overwhelming. It's hard to pull the words up, it's hard to recall things, blah, 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 when everything's going on. We just forget, mate. You know, like, you've told me not to do that, and I understand I'm not supposed to do that, and I won't do that, but, you know, it's, all this time has passed between then and now, and I've forgotten that you told me not to do that. I'm sorry about that. Like, it just sounds like, after sort of hearing what he's on about, it sounds completely reasonable. But also, like, he's saying things like, do you find childish language easier to understand? He's like, it's super, like, soul destroying for us that people think that we need to be treated like babies. Like, I'm 13 years old, you know, treat me like I'm 13. Like, it's hard for me to speak, you know, and take in information in the same way that you do, as quickly as you do, but I'm still 13. Like, stop treating me like I'm 4, you know, which I can completely understand. Oh my god. Part of me doesn't want to admit out loud how nice of a day it is right now, because it could literally rain at any second. But it's just so sunny and delightful. Hey, what'd you do in school today?
I made a wind wheel.
Mm-hmm.
I made a flag.
Mm-hmm.
I played.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to Chloe's mom.
Because she's Dutch too, huh?
She speaks 3 language.
Whoa.
Khmer, Snake, and Dutch.
Oh.
Why does it keep turning off? Like, so I made flags, and it was blue, white, and red, and I talked different language.
What language?
What's
the word you learned in Dutch then?
Oma is big sister. Oma.
Well, I know I shouldn't have said anything about it being a nice day. Okay, I finished it, and it was really delightful. It went by really fast, mind. I didn't realise how fast it was going to go, but as I'm like flicking through it now, you can see it's obvious that it was going to go really fast. I just didn't realise. It was really interesting, actually, what you were saying. You're saying his mind sort of like exists outside of time, or sort of his perception of time is so completely different from, say, conventional perceptions of time. It's hard for him to sort of gauge, you know, like 10 minutes from now or whatever. Like, certain periods of time will stretch on and on and on for ages, and then other bits of time will sort of flash and be over in an instant. And he sort of experiences things that happened in the past. He'll sort of have a flashback memory and sort of basically live them again, you know, like us, we would just remember it happening, but for him, he would sort of relive that whole time completely, like, again, and get the same emotions that he had at that time, you know, now. So you're saying, like, he'll just randomly be sitting down and all of a sudden just burst out in tears because he's reliving a really sad thing that happened ages ago. I thought that was really interesting. You know, like, he'll just be sort of sitting down and like burst out laughing, and people are like, okay, and he's like, no, I'm reliving a hilarious thing that happened. Like, also he was saying about like repetition as a comfort, you know, like we, like people who aren't autistic, you know, sort of we often find comfort in repetition as well, but not sort of like, you know, the same exact thing over and over again. It's just more like sort of familiar surroundings are more comfortable to us than unfamiliar surroundings, and that's, you know, fair. But for him, he's sort of saying, literally the same action over and over again. It's like his brain keeps sending out sort of the same signal, and he gets caught in a repetition that feels comforting to him, you know? So that's another reason why he'll often have to be told a million times not to do something, because part of his brain knows he's not supposed to do it, but the other part of his brain recognizes that he's done it before and wants to do it again, like as a repetitive action in order to find comfort, you know? Which is super interesting. And I feel like this has really opened up my mind and made me think loads about like various people I know and why they do the things they do, like my family and my friends and everyone. Yeah, my mind is blown. I loved that book. 5 stars. Also, there's a story at the end that he wrote, and it's delightful. It's about a boy who dies, becomes a ghost, and has to be born again into his family as a baby who doesn't know himself, you know, as like a completely wiped clean person, so that his mother won't be sad without him. How delightful. Okay, now let's talk TBR for the remaining days, right? 3 days left. I feel like we're coming to the home stretch and we need to be, you know, scheduled, vigilant about this, and have it in our minds for the home stretch in order to stay on track and not drop the ball, right? Okay, so I've laid out a final stretch TBR. So for tomorrow, I'm not in the office tomorrow, but I think it's going to be quite a busy day. So I've chosen The Woman in the Purple Skirt by Matsuko Imamura, I think. So this one, it looks really thick, but it's only 209 pages, just slightly over. And when you look at the actual pages, like it's large text and doesn't take up, you know, a lot of the page. So I think that's actually going to be quite a quick read. It is about the woman in the purple skirt seems to live in a world of her own. She appears to glide through crowded streets without acknowledging anyone around her. Most afternoons she sits on the same park bench, eating a pastry and ignoring the local children who make a game of trying to get her attention. The woman in the purple skirt is being watched. Someone is following her, always perched just out of sight, monitoring which buses she takes, what she eats, whom she speaks to. But this invisible observer isn't a stalker. It's much more complicated than that. Translated from Japanese, which is totally my bag. Obviously. Okay, so that's tomorrow's book. Next day, so the Wednesday and the Thursday, I'm literally in the office, physically in the office, especially since Anwen's COVID test has come back negative. Now I have to actually be there. And I need books to read, physical books to read, because, you know, lunchtime, break time, stuff like that. Oops, I got a call. Okay, what was I saying? Oh, yes. Okay, so for Wednesday and Thursday, I'm physically in the office. I need to be able to have a text to read while I'm there, obviously. But I understand that there's not going to be as much opportunity to have a physical book out, so I may need to make up time in the reading with an audiobook. So the two for those days do have the audiobook option if I'm sort of running a bit behind. First one for Wednesday, right? It's going to be All Systems Red by Martha Wells. This is the Murderbot book that I'm super excited about. Being back in the office for the first time in ages is going to be horrendous, but I'm hoping that reading this book that I'm super excited to read is going to help that sort of, you know, remedy the mental health a bit. We'll see. Okay, that's Wednesday. Then Thursday, we have Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. So Brooklyn, 2001, watched lovingly by her relatives and friends, 16-year-old Melody celebrates her coming of age wearing a custom-made dress. The very same dress that was sewn for Melody's mother for a celebration that ultimately never took place. Unfurling the history of Melody's family from the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre to post-9/11 New York, Red at the Bone explores sexual desire, race, class, and the life-altering facts of parenthood as it looks at the ways in which young people must so often make fateful decisions about their lives before they have even begun to figure out who they are and what they want to be. This one also has the option to have an audiobook just in case I sort of lose myself in the time warp of being in the office. Okay. This is the plan for the ending times, ladies and gentlemen. These are the very end. And then hopefully, if I can just nail this, if I can just keep it going, I will have at the end of this week done 30 books in 30 days for Shorty September and smashed it out of the park. But I don't want to jinx it. Don't want to jinx it. Okay. Thank you for watching. If you have literally any thoughts at all about anything, please let me know. You know, questions, comments. Have you read any of these? Should I be particularly excited about any of these, or are any of them not so good? Like, I would also like to know that. Did you read this? Did it blow your mind? Because that would all be interesting comments. Okay, I will see you tomorrow.